Welcome to the Blind Apex Podcast, where amateur club racers tune in to get faster.
I'm your host, Con John Turk, and this is a selfish episode. Like most of them, actually. It was on my list to cover. It's on my list of things to do. And then I heard my guest talk about it on her podcast. We're talking roll centers and how to measure it with a returning guest, driver coach, low buck racer extraordinaire, star of Jackie's Corner, Jackie Andrews. Welcome back to the show. Yay! Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
So, what have you been up to? Because I know you released, the last podcast you released, we're recording in middle of October. You were covering 2 events that you had done. And then you talked about your roll center. And I was like, I have to convince her to come on the show and talk about how to do this because I need to do this too. So, what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Yeah, so my last podcast episode, I kind of brought everybody back up to speed on New Jersey, which was 2 races ago, and what I was kind of feeling in the car, and then all the changes that I made for Watkins Glen, which was 2 weeks ago, something like that. Yeah, so I've been looking for corner speed in my car all year because it's the only thing I can look for because it makes what it makes for power. But in New Jersey, it felt really tight. Mm-hmm. And I was trying some other things that weren't working out, some brake pads and whatnot, but I could see it in the data the car was slow. And it felt like it was too low, and the roll center was in the wrong spot, and the car just didn't feel good. So I figured, let me go home and measure it and plot it all and see where it is. I never officially measured it when I set the car up for H1, like on 17s and then on 15s. I kind of went off of what I knew for my H2 setup and kind of put it in a spot where I figured it would be happy. And I think I was wrong. I think I've been wrong the whole time.
I mean, we're not all perfect. We try, but...
Well,
so you didn't measure roll center when you switched engines and classes, when you went from 15s to 17s, and when you went back to 15s.
Right. So I knew on 17s it wasn't going to be an issue because I could only get it so low. I actually thought about taking everything out because I didn't know if I needed it. I was like, let's leave it. But when I put it back on 15s with giant ball joints and everything else, I knew I could run the car lower than I had. So I did by not an arbitrary number, but it was lower than it used to be. And looking at the control arm, like for example, looking at the front control arm, inner pivot versus where it is on the ball joint, and it seemed to be pretty good. And also I was just testing a theory at that time, so let's just slam this thing together and see if it works.
Right.
On 15. And it did. It was great. It's awesome. Let's leave it. It's fine. But I think it's too low. Well, it's not too low now. but I think it was too low. Yeah, so I took a bunch of measurements and figured out where the roll center was, and I thought it was too low. Then I had to go down the rabbit hole of finding what is an optimal-ish number. Mm-hmm. Kind of where do you want it? And what I found was quite a bit higher than where my car was. So it took me about 2 or 3 weeks to figure out how to raise it without losing like all of the travel that I had left.
Right.
I tried some different shock forks to try to raise it without compressing what was left of my helper spring. That didn't work. Fun fact, pretty much every Honda shock fork is the same length from 92 to now.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though Honda says they're not, when you get them in your hands and measure them, they are the same. So, and I ended up just raising in, and I was able to keep enough droop travel to keep everything happy. And went to the Glen, like I said, a week or two ago. But the weather was so spotty, it was hard to really tell. I basically never got up to speed. It was cold. I learned something new about this stupid tire that I'm driving on. But the car was faster in 2 key spots on track, which kind of told me I was going in the right direction.
Right.
So hopefully in New Jersey at the beginning of next month, if the weather is good, I'll be able to get better data.
And validate the changes you've been making.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty important.
Yeah.
So, my lead question, who needs to measure their roll center?
Oh boy. Anyone who actually cares about their setup, because not everyone does.
Right.
I know people with very expensive dampers and still just, oh, the car looks good here. I think this is where it used to be. And they just drive it and it's fine. Which is kind of one of those things that's why like golden era cars were so good, because it's really hard to screw them up.
Right.
So, but I mean, if you're really into your, like dialing your setup in and at least like wanting to know what's happening everywhere, you should probably at least measure it so you know where it is. So if you made a change, a ride height change on either end of the car, you could quantify what you see in the data, what you feel in your butt, etc.
Okay.
But it is a tuning tool. You can use it as a tuning tool.
Yeah. And I think it's where I need to be. And it was on my list of things to do this off season. So when you started talking about it, I was like, yes, I got to figure out how to do this, and who better to talk me through it. So
I'm sure there's somebody better, but I could do it.
So, what exactly is roll center?
So it's exactly what it sounds like, right? Roll center. It's the center of mass at which the car rolls around, in theory. So let's extrapolate. So to find your roll center, first you would find your instant centers. So I'm sure most people have a golden era car, so they'll kind of follow this one. But strut cars, it's the same. You would take your upper and lower control arm angles and kind of plot them out to where they intersect in space on both sides. That's going to be your instant center. And then those 2 points coming back towards the center of the car and where the contact patch of the tire is, where that intersects, there's your roll center. So hopefully it's above the ground, because that's where you want it. Yeah, and then there's lots of other things that tie into that.
Yeah. Are we going to talk about the static roll center or how it moves as you load
Whatever
tires?
you want.
I think it's
because it does move.
It does move. And I'm probably wrong, and I'm about to say something completely wrong, but it moves towards the inside of the car. Wherever the car, if the car's going left, it's going to move left. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's going to follow whichever way the chassis is leaning. So if the chassis is leaning to the left, the roll center is kind of going to go with it. At least on a golden era car. Mm-hmm. And I only say that because I haven't plotted any strut car stuff. I mean, it should be the same. I can't say 100% yes, that's what it does. But it should. It's all physics and geometry.
Yes. So get out your protractors, your graph paper, some rulers. You know, I know you sent me the fancy online tool to do it, but I think I'm going to also go through the process of plotting it out myself and drawing myself a little picture, just so it helps me understand what I'm looking at, I think. So I would encourage that. When you first try this roll center thing, do it on paper. But how are you getting super accurate? Are you scaling what you're drawing?
When I drew it on paper, I scaled it.
Okay.
So I made my own scale and then scaled it, and I still needed a very large piece of paper to do it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even if you scale it down, I don't know, 1 centimeter on the graphing paper, 1 centimeter is a foot or something. Like it still, well, you won't get that. You won't have the detail, but oh yeah. So what is that? 2 pieces of 8 and
it's 3.
It's 3 pieces.
It's 3.
She just held up taped up graphing paper with 3 pieces. It's 2 left to right, and it's about another half or so going up, so she could get the upper angles. So this is what you're looking forward.
1 inch my scale was 1 inch. On the car was a half a centimeter to try to get it to fit.
Oh wow! Okay, 1 inch.
I was like, all right, this should work.
1 inch on the car was half a centimeter on the paper.
On paper.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah, I may have to go buy big graphing paper because my car's thick.
Yeah, it actually ended up right. Your car's thicker than mine.
So,
but it's definitely, it's good to see it. It makes a lot, even if you're not going to do anything with it, but just kind of do it, it makes things make sense. Some ride height changes, especially in the rear of the car, will start to make sense. Foreshadowing.
Yeah. So that's something I need to look at the front and the rear, right? Because my rear, it feels planted and my front feels unstuck all the time, just always plowing. And so I need to measure what it is now and then sort of go why and see if that's
right. So what you're going to find is the rear roll center number is going to be higher than the front, which is common. That's fine. How far apart they are is kind of what you're going to be looking for. So if you plot the front, I don't know if you can do this in any software, but if you were to plot the front and plot the back and then turn the whole model sideways and then draw a line from the front to the rear and see what the inclination was, then you could kind of see where the weight is transferring and how when you roll the car. And especially if you've got a car like yours that's not handling well and it's frustrating, you may see something there. Oh, when I load the car, it overloads the nose, or it does something weird that you didn't think it was doing.
Yeah. I'm fully prepared that is what I'm going to find. I'm going to find something that's completely out of whack because the car is sort of ride height wise, which is apparently what influences my roll center, is completely eyeballed. We just spitballed it. Now, when I got the car, she was tucked front and back, and everybody was like, that's how you have to run them. That's how they handle. But then I measured how little travel I had up and down, and I was like, ooh, this is bad. I had under 1 inch of up travel in the car. So I had to make changes.
That's a problem.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So lots of measuring went in. I decided on a number, but I did not measure roll center. I just was like, well, if I raise it this much, it will give me this much more travel. So this is what I'm going to do. But I need to be more educated. I need to worry about travel, roll center, and some other things, but we won't get into that stuff today. All right. So how does roll center moving up or down affect the car?
That's a good question. So the roll center, let me back up. If you move the car up or down, what you're affecting at that point is the roll center's distance from the center of gravity in the chassis. So in the front, let's just say it's the crankshaft is the center of gravity, like that height, right? We'll go with that for an example. So if you raise the car and that roll moment, because that's what that distance is between the two, gets longer, the car will, not changing anything spring-wise, you're just changing the ride height, the car's going to roll more. Not because it's higher, because now you have more leverage on the roll moment. And vice versa. If it's lower, it's not going to want to roll because that distance now gets shorter. So, like for me, when my car's too low and it feels really tight, that's why. Because it's not rolling. But because the car is sprung how I want it, it's almost like it's oversprung. So it's not rolling. It's not loading the chassis like I want to. And it's just tight. It drives like garbage. Yeah. And then if you raise it, and that's your issue, you'll start to get some of that back. If you raise it too much, it's going to roll all over the place, and you're going to have to chase it with shock. If you can chase it with shock, or chase it with spring, depending on what you have access to at the time. So you kind of want to find a happy medium. I've read a lot. I've seen a lot of different numbers. I've talked to some people that run way lower than me. So I think there's a good place to start. And then from there, you kind of go up and down and find what it is that you like. Some people like a car that's soft and rolls, and some people don't. So, and it's not much. It's at that point, you're probably only talking about, if you made a half an inch, that'd be a huge adjustment.
Right.
If you were already in the ballpark. So, which I would think in an H2 car, you probably are. Because I don't think you could get like your car too low.
Maybe.
I don't. Could be wrong.
Could be. I don't know. We'll have to measure.
There you go.
So there's this term called jacking, and it relates to where your roll center is and how things load up. So it's essentially the leverage in cornering. This is my understanding, so please correct me if I'm wrong. As you load the tire, it's the leverage that moves the body on the opposite side tire up.
Yes.
So, in my case, I believe I am jacking the front, definitely not the rear. So I may have the front too high and the rear too low, is what I'm thinking. But I have to measure first.
And it's possible.
So, these are some of the effects that occur, right? So what happens is your roll center is real high, and you load that corner, and it, on a front wheel drive car, it will want to even more, even if you have as much droop as you can get into it, it wants to pick that inside tire up off the ground. And I have, like the episode I did with the photographers, I have photographic evidence of this occurring with no curbing involved. So it gets really, I was looking at it and I was like, how can this be happening? I looked at the pictures. I went back to the data. It's super slow turn. And I'm still essentially getting the car. At that point, I was on two wheels at a very slow speed. So, I know what the rears always pick up on our cars, right? We're binding it with a big bar. It's gonna jack that rear up through the sway bar, less through the roll center, but it's happening in the front. So it's a big deal for me. So I know you talked about where to measure and what to measure and stuff, but exactly how should somebody measure this? Like, are they putting the car on jack stands under the control arms. How super accurate do you need to be? Because I feel like most people will be under there with a tape measure, but they're going to try to find center of the wheel, center or the overall width, center of the wheels, those types of things. Like, so what are we measuring? How should we set the car up to do it? And what are the tools we're using while we're down there?
So you want the car to be sitting statically. So if you can squeeze under there and measure it, great. They make, like Race Ramps makes these giant blocks that you can set the car on that have a U shape to them so the car won't roll off them, which is perfect for things like this. But if you don't have access to that, and maybe you got some cinder blocks, you throw the car up on cinder blocks so you can get under there and measure it better. But you want the chassis to be sitting static so you can measure a little more accurately. I mean, it doesn't really matter because you're measuring. Well, it does. But like as far as measuring the control arms, that is what it is. But you want to measure the chassis to the ground. Like, let's say your inner control arm, like a lower control arm inner pivot, let's say to the ground. You need that measurement. So for that, I mean, even if you had it up on something, you could subtract whatever you put the car up on, but you still want it to be sitting statically. If you're going to use like a program or something to kind of plot all the angles, you can kind of cheat it at that point. When I did it the first time, I tried to measure all the angles, so I needed the car sitting statically, which is really hard because Honda control arms are not flat anywhere.
None of them.
So then I had to find the angle that was built into the casting of the control arm and then subtract that from the angle that I found. I'm crazy. But whatever, it's fine. So yeah, you can measure with a tape measure. It's fine. If you're measuring center of the like lower control arm bolt and you can get in there and kind of see where you're at, you can get to the center of it. Is it going to be down to 4 decimal points? No, but it doesn't need to be down to 4 decimal points. Someone will say I'm wrong, but
do we need to get down to 16ths of an inch?
I would say if you can get it down to a 16th, that should be fine.
Okay.
Try to get it as accurate as possible, and you'll know when you're measuring if you're flubbing it or if you're really taking a good look at it. The spindles are hard to measure because now you're looking for center points. Like if it's off the car, even it's really hard. You don't have an axle in it to find like the center point of where the hub is. Mm-hmm. I measured all that off the car. That was a lot easier. But again, you can do that with a tape measure. It's fine. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, if you've got like one of those paper ones, like paper kind of tape measure joints, that'll be good because it'll go around little bends and stuff like that. And you can if you've got to get it in behind the wheel and everything's all together and you want to measure where it is at the ball joint, but you got to tuck it into the wheel. It's a little easier to deal with, but you can pretty much do it with a tape measure. Just, kind of be diligent on how you're doing it. And yeah.
Okay.
Plot it all up. See what you get.
Okay. So we're measuring, at least on the double wishbone cars, we're measuring upper control arm, lower control arm. We're measuring their angles, most likely using their distance from the ground, and then we're making these lines converge. You also need to plot where the center of your wheel is, or your center of your contact patch, I guess. Maybe wheel.
Yes, and the center of the car.
And the center of the car. So those are your major points. And then you're worried about these convergence points. And one of the reasons that you need a big piece of paper is because the convergence point is way out on the side of your car somewhere. Your car is actually rotating way out on the side. And then you're using that point and the contact patch center to find your roll center, which will be somewhere statically somewhere under the car on the middle of the car line, hopefully above the ground. I have a feeling I've got one that's below the ground, but
So, if things are going well, when you start plotting everything and your instant centers are way out in space past the sides of the car, that's usually good. It's when they're really close to the tire or maybe a little inboard, things are going to be awry. I think there's actually more to where the instant center lands than people let on, and I haven't figured that out yet, but I think there's something there also. But yeah, that's essentially it. On a upper and lower control arm car, you also need to plot the upper control arm pivot points, which is easy. It's where it bolts into the chassis. So if y'all are taking notes on what to measure, that's another one. Because you want to know the distance of the control arm, the pivot point, and then the distance between the two inner pivot points, so you can half that and find the center of the car.
Yeah. And if you're fancy and have like CAD on your computer, we don't, at least I don't know if you do, but there's another technique that you can use. It's called the instantaneous radius method, which actually takes a lot less time to do, but you have to have the fancy software to do it. There's not much measuring involved, but you'll need to look that up and do it. And you'll probably be okay with doing that because you have CAD software already. So,
interesting. I have to look into that one.
Yeah. So what happens is they're measuring the lower control arm inboard, the lower control arm outboard, and what they do is they do a sweep of that, and they do a sweep, a measured degree up, a measured degree down. They find those 2 points, they center it, and they do 90 degree off of that center point, and then that becomes that basically helps find the angle of the, say they use this on 5-link cars, is what I read. And they use it on,
that makes sense,
hard to measure McPherson cars and things like that. So, but it does require software. You can't just, sort of plot it. And I mean, you could probably try, but you can't really plot. You'd have to really measure your arm well, and then have a really good string set up so you could actually draw your own arc on paper to do it. But I would stick with the software if you're going to do it that way.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Let's see. It's a complicated topic, and I wanted to sort of introduce it to people because they're going to need to do more research, right? This is a podcast. I can't show you pictures. I can't explain it. I can't show you, how to move things and then what it does. You're going to have to research that yourself. But it's a topic I think people need to be aware of. Like you said, if you care anything about your setup, you need to know this, and that's important.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So it's worth investigating. It does, like you said, you're using it as a tuning tool. I'm hopefully going to use it as a tuning tool. I need to figure out where it is and if it's the problem. I kind of think it is. Now that I've researched it, I've talked to you, I think it's one of my problems. So I need to figure that out.
Yeah, it could be. If the car's jacking really bad, there's something going on.
Oh, yeah.
And you've pretty much exhausted every other option. So
Not every other option, but I have a plan for every other option. So I want to measure.
Boy, what have you not checked?
I have not done crazy changes to my spring rates to see what happens if I do that.
Oh.
So let's just say, okay, with McPherson strut cars, even with the golden eras, 20 years ago, golden era cars ran 1,000-pound rear springs and gigantic hollow bars and no front spring because springs meant they didn't get traction, right? I mean, that's how people first started running these cars.
Yep.
Excuse me.
800 in the front, 1,000 in the rear or higher.
Right. That's no longer how things work.
Unless you're an SCCA person, then they still do it.
Okay. Well, so then here comes yes, that's fine. My car has predominantly been run by SCCA folks to date. McPherson Strut 8th gens. They weren't running IMSA because they were so bad that they didn't even, Honda had such a bad time with them. They weren't running those cars. Anyway, so essentially I'm on that old style setup. Huge 1,100-pound rear springs. They're not actually huge. They're tiny because of the McPherson strut setup. I have maybe 4-inch tall springs in the back that are 1,100 pounds. They look like gigantic diesel boat valve springs is what they put in the back. So, yeah. And then in the front is just a standard 6-7-inch coil in the front, but in the rear, it's all jacked up. So I don't have the luxury, your car, maybe not your car. Most people's cars have a 6 or 7-inch spring front and rear, and they can sort of interchange them. They can buy this span of spring rates and sort of play with them. I have to buy 2 sets of spring rates. So that's sort of why I haven't done it yet, but soon. I have some springs, so I'm going to start messing around before the year's over and play with spring rates before I mothball the car and do all the measuring. So
that might be eye-opening also. I'm surprised it's got that much rear spring.
Oh, yeah. And rumor has it, everybody's favorite 8th gen to point out it's fast, so nobody needs any 8th gen rules. He's running higher spring rates. Much higher. Schanfeld car.
Oh.
They're like,
yeah, and I could kind of understand why.
So he's running 1,400 rear springs, something like that. So,
what's he running in the front?
Like 14K up front, 15K, something like that. So,
wow.
His spring package is higher all the way around, but everybody likes to point out he's fast. You just need to work on your car to get it faster. Yes, I need to work on my car to get it faster, but looking at nationals this year, not to talk smack about it, but his car wasn't able to keep tires under it for more than 15 minutes. So he was fast. But in the national championship race, the golden eras were going to run his tires off before he ever had a chance, So if we're talking about to balance out the class, we're going to have to figure that out. And it might be in the setup because, everybody runs their car that way, essentially. And they all have the same problem of running tires off. So something's got to change, and that's where I'm going to look first. I'll be the guinea pig. I'm not asking for anything. I'll just keep.
Well, what happens when you put a whole bunch of spring in the car? It stops rolling. So where does all the load go? Into the tire.
Yep.
But the chassis is not helping it at all, being that stiff, and on a Toyo that's soft. you're going to drive the tires off it.
Yep.
But I bet you that car on a Hoosier, or like I think they used to run a BFG when they ran it in SCCA classes. I bet you it would work.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably oversprung. I think it's oversprung for the tire, but I don't know. I don't work for Honda.
Yep. So that's all, all the extra things I get to look at, spring rates, changes, motion ratio stuff versus, how I actually get the rear of the car specifically to function. Motion ratio says that I need that big 1,000-pound spring out back. But when I put it back there, am I actually able to leverage it to get on the bar? Because I can tell you when I got it sort of turning, I'd had to use shock. And when I went to VIR, I could not touch a curb at VIR with the way the shocks were set up to help it turn a little. It wasn't great, but so
what would happen when you hit the curb?
Oh, it would bounce me right off the curb. Like the rear end would jump a foot off the other way.
You need better shocks.
All right, we'll work on that. I'm not rich. I'm not Dylan.
Well, you need to become rich. Stop screwing around with these things that aren't working for you.
Well, I'm going to eliminate some things before I start spending money on shocks, I think. Yeah, don't roll your eyes at me. Throw your head back like that. It's crazy. I get it. I want to test the simple stuff, the, spring rate ratios and things like that before I go, okay, I'm settled to where I am, and then I'll get more seat time and save some money and buy real shocks. So,
okay, fine.
It's a progressive development of this car. So,
okay,
but I could get lucky and my roll center could just be off. You never know. So, it probably is off plus some. So.
I'm interested to know when you measure it, what it comes out to.
Yeah. We definitely need to get that out there. For other people who don't know, you're running an ST right now, right?
Yeah.
And or H1, depending on the field, I guess. You guys are allowed roll center correction kits, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not, so I've never looked at them, but what do they do and how do they help?
So in the front, it's usually an extended ball joint of some fashion. And in the rear, like on a Golden Era car, it's the hone bracket is the only thing that you can get. And in the front, it spaces the ball joint down. So if you think about a car being too low and you're looking at the lower control arms and the outside of the control arms are facing up, which is bad. And that's where it attaches to the ball joint. If you had a longer ball joint, that would bring that angle back down, which is now helping our roll center. And the same in the rear, the bracket bolts to the trailing arm and lowers the attachment point for the lower control arm outward by the trailing arm. So this, in theory, it allows you to run lower and have good geometry and break your trailing arms, because now you have all this extra load on the trailing arms and they're 30 years old and they break. It's awesome. But yeah, it's surprisingly not, it's not like a ton more low that you can run. That was horrible English. But I thought it was going to be a lot more, and I plotted everything with and without in the front without the ball joints, and it wasn't as drastic as I thought it was, which is interesting.
Okay.
But it does help. It does help.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand how it worked, especially out back. I understood that most of the front ones are, extended ball joints by design. You can sort of see when you look online, you Google it, you're like, that ball joint is not normal, you know? So,
Yep.
Yeah, you can see that, but in the back.
Theory in the rear.
Yeah. That's interesting. You think that is the issue that people are having with the Golden Era trailing arms breaking?
So I have a couple theories.
Mm-hmm.
One of them I know is true because I've watched it happen. Everyone on 17s breaks their trailing arms more often than people on 15s. And it's sheerly because the wheel and tire is larger and you have more leverage on the trailing arm. That's just physics. I broke mine on 17s. I know a lot of people that have broken them. And knock on wood, I have another set getting braced up anyway, but I haven't broken these yet on 15s and Hoosiers. It's not to say they're not going to break, but because there's less actual leverage on the trailing arm, they'll last a little longer.
Okay. I mean, even Baker in H2 trim without correction broke his. So some of it definitely has to do with age, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, he broke what, one trailing arm?
Yes.
Right. We're breaking them like once a season.
Yeah. Did you weld in the gusseting setup to your set?
My second set, yes.
Okay.
They're at the fabricator now, getting all
burned
gusseted up.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ones that are on the car currently are unmodified ones.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully they don't crack at the last event. I'll have them done also. But yeah, the big wheels don't help. But that's, you know, what we're doing these days.
I mean, my car came with big wheels, so I'm sort of happy to keep them. But
yeah, it should be fine. It's a newer car and engineered better.
Engineered in quotation marks. Better is also suspect. Yeah, air quoting all of that.
Well, as far as stiffness of parts and things of that nature.
Oh, yeah.
Designed to be a heavier car from the get-go.
It's definitely a rigid car.
The geometry. Yeah.
Those K-Series engines are awesome, too.
New car, you would have bought a TSX or something.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I would have. I can't believe they're not restricted prep cars, but, you know, whatever.
They're heavy. That's the problem.
Yes.
They don't get down to like a good H2 weight. That was why.
Okay. So they're limited prep cars still.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we gave them like cams or something back in the day because they did make power. Who knows? That rule is no longer there. So.
Oh, yeah. We can make power now. All K-Series cars can make power. It's not a question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love my dyno that says I only make 221 at the track.
Oh, it might be the same dyno we use. So
it is.
Yeah. It was very low, but I'll take it all day.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So anything else do we need to cover about roll centers, you think? I think this is a good intro, but I didn't know if you had anything saved. I know you had notes.
We actually touched on everything that I had written about, so that's good.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking time to come on the show again and talk about roll centers. You know, hopefully next time I'll have a solution and we can talk about something else.
That'll be fun.
All right. Well, I will see you next time. Thanks for being on.
Bye.
Until next time, keep working on yourself, keep working on the car, and let's get faster.